When I talk to my students, when I talk to my comrades in organizing spaces, when I give, public lectures or I'm in study groups, I always caution against following the presidential election cycles in the United States. And the reason why I do this is because these sort of politics tend to suck out all of the oxygen in the room. And everything that we had been working on, whether it's long-term projects, short-term sort of, protests or movements, get sort of sucked up into this political cycle that, frankly, we don't have control over. We don't have control over the outcomes, and we don't have control over the narrative. That doesn't mean you shouldn't follow it, but you don't beat yourself up trying to follow every single thing that comes out of, the corporate media about what Trump said and, what Kamala Harris said or what President Biden has said, because it's a losing battle. The sort of coronation of the next ruling class. And, as an objective observer, we should look back and think, these are the candidates for the bourgeoisie that the ruling class has put forward as their best representatives. You have Trump, a multiple convicted white collar criminal, to say nothing of his, sort of overt, sort of fascistic, right-wing racist sort of character. And then you have Kamala Harris, who was somebody that nobody wanted back in 2020 in terms of even Democratic donors, sort of resigned in disgrace before she could say and do things that were, damaging to her political career. She was essentially selected by, an elder statesman such as President, Biden. And there wasn't a democratic process. And this is me not I'm not here to redeem the Democratic Party. I'm just here to look at what has happened, right? But nonetheless, she was selected by Biden as his next successor, right? Kind of circumventing the whole democratic, quote unquote, small d democratic process that was supposed to happen. And we saw this happen in 2016, with the taking of the candidacy, or even allowing sort of a debate at the DNC around the selection of a populist candidate like Bernie Sanders, who has totally revealed himself in this moment as an apologist for Israeli sort of settler colonialism and Zionism, but nonetheless he kind of represented this upsurge in 2016, as well as a little bit in 2020, as an alternative within the sort of ruling Democratic Party. And I'm bringing all of this up because I think these years are important, because 2016, was the year that the Standing Rock movement happened, the movement of water protectors. Obviously, water protectors, that wasn't a term that was just invented in 2016. They've been around since there's been, since time immemorial, but nonetheless, we're in the age of the water protector. And that's something I'm talking about in my new book, or the republication of my old book from 2019 called Our History is the Future. But the publication of that book has made me rethink some of these, key, 4-year cycles that are happening in US politics, and sort of the failure of a alternative to emerge. And I'm not blaming necessarily the social movements, but looking at the larger structures at play, at how these movements get co-opted within specifically the Democratic Party. That also goes into what has happened in 2020 in terms of the George Floyd uprisings that that literally lit aflame major U.S. cities across the United States, Canada, North America, and in some cases the world. But that, you had the language of defund the police and a really critical look at law enforcement. But the momentum for that particular movement seemed to have been absorbed and captured by Democratic operatives and politicians to move that momentum into, oh, well, this happened under Trump, so we have to get Biden in, because otherwise we're going to have 4 more years of Trump. And that means we're going to have increased police violence and repression. But you have to remember that Biden said in that election cycle, if you elect me, there will be, nothing will fundamentally change. And I think that's an important thing. It's like you always have to believe, people when they say something about who they are and what they're going to do. And I think this has been the sort of character or defining feature of Biden's presidency. There's a lot to say about Biden the person, but nonetheless, his sort of policy hasn't changed. It hasn't deviated in many ways, even from what Trump put into place, or let alone what Obama before him had put in place.